I loved the scale of it. I had come to love epic language. It's something I got to experiment with in Game of Thrones and some other things that I'd been doing, and so that was enticing. But I could say a million things. I mean, the cast that had been assembled by Ken Branagh was a dream cast. A chance to work with people like that. I have come to love having one, foot in reality and one foot in kind of fantasy or something else. And so all those things were coming together in this. And Thor is a unique superhero because he's, he carries so much the weight of history, and he carries mythology, and he's that stuff gave him the kind of stature that I found exciting. Yeah, a lot of the work we've been doing on Thor 2 has been to try and ground it, and to sort of, even though we're traveling 9 realms and in the universe, to never depart from it feeling real and emotionally connecting. So it's partly the performances that we're getting out of this amazing cast that make you actually relate to what's going on. Chris Hemsworth was born to play this role, and people say that about many characters and many actors, but I've never been so aware of it being true. I mean, to be a young man who carries the weight of godliness it's a challenging thing to do, and just Chris, besides being sort of physically perfect, has a voice that carries such weight. He's got such an amazing instrument that you actually can believe that this young man has the stature of something that's more than human. In Thor 1, we saw him go from being an impetuous prince to taking the first steps towards maturing and growing up. And in our film, that life story continues, and he's maturing. He's moving closer to actually claiming the kind of power and that goes with Odin. He's becoming not just a man, but a king, potentially. We get a chance to see Loki in a different light, which is fun because it means we get to send Tom in a different direction. He's such an amazing actor. The later Thor imagery was the most compelling for me. It really, towards the end, started developing a huge, real richness, and it felt like a saga. It felt like it had one foot firmly in Norse mythology. Trying to balance that with the sort of the wackier earlier stuff, and is one of the balancing challenges of any Thor movie. But for me, it's pretty obvious that I responded mostly to that, the stuff that evoked the mythology, and it was very important for me to shoot in location in Iceland, to actually go to the world where all the stuff came from, and try and get that, like I said, the later imagery in the comics into the movie. The challenging part, but also the great fun, is creating these creatures and the worlds they come from. David Lynch was one of my favorite filmmakers, and he had a quote once where he said, for him in the future, filmmaking would be not so much about telling stories, but more about creating worlds. And he's always been a wonderful world creator, and that's part of the part of it that appeals to me the most. So having a chance to create not just Asgard, but Vanaheim and Nidavellir and Svartalheim. The names are hard to say, but the worlds are wonderful to try and envision. The biggest challenge for the film was the Dark Elves, and that's the part that I feel the happiest with and the most proud of. Partly you're drawing on the comics, but there's a limit to what you can pull from the comics. Malekith in the comics looks like a court jester at Carnival, and it's or a rock star or something, and it was sort of great in its world and its period. But for us, we had to sort of find something darker and more threatening, and so finding Malekith's look and finding the basic imagery of the Dark Elves was a collaboration, but it was really fun. Our major villain for this is Malekith, played by Chris Eccleston, and Thor is not just a superhero. He's got the weight of history behind him. So we needed a villain that had scale and was sort of epic as well. And so Malekith's backstory goes back at least 5,000 years. And he and his people have been gone for 5,000 years, and they're coming back to, in their minds, right a terrible wrong. They're driven by vengeance. But Malekith is sort of a noble creature in that he's committed to his purpose above all. He sacrificed absolutely everything to achieve his end. he's basically, all he wants is the universe. He's sort of an absolutist. We were being inspired by various sort of fanatics that plague our world right now who believe there is no gray area. There is either absolute defeat or absolute victory. He's bent on absolute victory.